Sit back and enjoy an hour of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get started. The United States has a strategic cheese reserve consisting of more than 600,000 tons stored in different warehouses. The main one is inside a cave, adapted for this purpose in the state of Missouri. There are people who eat while they sleep. The sleep-related eating disorder, or SRED, is a parasomnia in which affected individuals may consume unusual foods or even non-edible substances while in a sleep state. It is related to sleepwalking, and in most cases, when they wake up, they do not remember anything. According to a study conducted on European athletes in the Olympic Games, it was discovered that 16.5% of participants have asthma. This percentage is almost double that of the general population. It is believed this is because doctors recommend that children with asthma practice sports so their lungs can become stronger. Your nose requires more blood flow to maintain normal temperature in the cold. This causes the blood vessels in this region to dilate and produce more mucus, which is why more liquid comes out of your nose when it's cold. There is a bird that has the same colors as Pikachu. It is the yellow-fronted woodpecker or cream-colored woodpecker. It inhabits South America. Its plumage is yellow and has red near the mouth, similar to the circles on the cheeks of the well-known Pokémon character. A student in Germany found a 17th century painting inside a sofa he bought in a second-hand store for the equivalent of $200. This painting, called Escape to Egypt and 400 years old, was later sold for $276,300. Alcohol bottles in cartoons were drawn with 3 X's on the label. This was once used in real life as a symbol of the quality of the drink in the bottle. During the Prohibition era in the United States, each X indicated the number of times it had been distilled, but centuries earlier it had been used on beers as a standardized grading system in England. Cats can develop an addiction to tuna and refuse to eat anything else. The reason they like this food so much is that tuna and other fish disproportionately activate the umami taste receptors, which humans also have, and which, along with sweet, salty, sour, and bitter, are part of the basic tastes. In 2017, a note written by Albert Einstein was auctioned for $1.5 million. It was written in 1922 as a tip for a messenger in Tokyo because he was not carrying cash. The note says, "A calm and modest life brings more joy than the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness." Marlon Brando did not learn most of his lines for his role in the film The Godfather, so they resorted to writing them down and placing them in different parts of the set for him to read while filming. They even placed them on other actors. High school teacher John Corcoran from San Diego, California, kept his inability to read a secret for 17 years until he finally confessed and set out to learn at 48 years of age. After this, he wrote books and created a foundation to promote reading. There is a scene in the series The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Carlton begins running all over the set, including other locations where previous scenes had been filmed. There is even a moment when he runs past the live audience. This improvisation pleased the production so much that they left it in the episode. In 1945, a German submarine became unusable and had to be abandoned because of the high-pressure toilet inside, which was not operated correctly by the crew member who used it. The water leak and gas release forced it to surface, where it was captured by Allied aircraft. The English band The Beatles managed to have 5 songs simultaneously in the top 5 positions of the Billboard popularity chart in April of 1964, a record that was not surpassed until 2021 when Drake had 9 songs, and later Taylor Swift surpassed this number twice. With streaming platforms, the way this chart is calculated has changed. Mary Kenneth Keller was the first woman to obtain a doctorate in computer science in the United States in 1965. She also contributed to the development of the basic programming language, which made programming more accessible to beginning students. There's a tower with lights in Stockholm, Sweden, whose colors can be changed by anyone using a smartphone app. Its creators stated that it symbolizes the power of democracy and the power of the people. Platypuses and echidnas do not have a stomach or an equivalent organ. Their bill connects directly to their intestines without passing through an area where acids and digestive enzymes are secreted. The smallest camera ever made is the size of a grain of sand. It can capture images at a resolution of 200 by 200 pixels and will be available for use in medical applications. It has no wireless capabilities. It must be connected with a cable. Tea is the most widely consumed manufactured beverage in the world. Its consumption is approximately equal to the sum of all other manufactured beverages combined. The first time a computer-generated sequence was used in a film was in Vertigo from 1958. For the opening, a Second World War computer that had been used to target moving aerial objects was used, allowing animated curves based on mathematical equations to be generated. The term public relations was invented by Sigmund Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, to replace the word propaganda, since it had a negative connotation due to the way it was used by the Germans during the First World War. Court jesters, in addition to entertaining, were responsible for delivering bad news to the king, something no one else dared to do. The most famous example was in 1340 when the French Navy was destroyed in a battle by the English. On that occasion, the jester told the king that the English sailors did not have the guts to jump into the water, like the brave French. Elephants can suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder just like humans, but it has been observed that they can recover by socializing more with members of their own species, a process known as social buffering. This represents a problem for elephants in captivity that are alone or live only with one other elephant. The Huns did not have a writing system, so everything known about this nomadic people so far is based on what their enemies wrote. All of them described their appearance as monstrous, as well as their way of speaking and their behavior. Dolphins can tolerate and recover from extreme injuries, such as shark bites. The healing process is very fast. Their wounds heal in a way that restores the natural shape of their bodies. Uranus and Neptune belong to a category of planets called ice giants, because less than 20% of their mass consists of hydrogen and helium, while gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn are 90% hydrogen and helium. Using laser technology, archaeologists discovered an ancient lost city in South Africa called Queneng, which had been covered by dense vegetation. It is believed to have had up to 20,000 inhabitants. It was built in the 15th century, but was abandoned in the early 19th century due to armed conflicts. In 2005, in a lottery, something unusual occurred that drew the attention of the organizers. Instead of having 4 or 5 second-place winners, as was customary, there were 110 second-prize winners. After investigating, this situation was attributed to a fortune cookie distributed in the days before that matched 5 of the 6 required numbers. Each of the winners received between $100,000 and $500,000. Clarence Nash provided the voice of Donald Duck for more than 50 years, appearing in 120 short films and movies. His performance was characterized by sounds made using trapped air in the mouth instead of the vocal cords in order to keep the character consistent. In addition to English, he also voiced the character in other languages, notably Spanish, which he actually knew how to speak, while for other languages, he used the phonetic alphabet. Goats are immune to different poisonous plants, such as poison ivy, which makes them a good alternative to herbicides for clearing land. They are often rented by the hour for this purpose. Producing an aluminum can from recycled materials uses up to 95% less energy than making it from scratch. This happens because the materials have already been refined previously, so manufacturing them a second time requires fewer cleaning processes and therefore less energy. Pontiac made a translucent car called the Deluxe 6 Plexiglass, which was presented as a prototype at the 1939 World's Fair. Its exterior is made of acrylic, and it was not intended for sale. It was only for people to see what cars had inside. The model that was built is preserved to this day. The wife of playwright and poet William Shakespeare was named Anne Hathaway. They married in 1582. Recently, images appeared on the internet comparing the appearance of William Shakespeare with the husband of the actress of the same name, Anne Hathaway. And yes, they do look quite similar. There is a restaurant called Medieval Times where themed shows from the Middle Ages are performed, such as sword fights and jousting duels, which take place on a stage. It has 10 locations, and they are built in the style of a castle. Among the fictional languages that you can actually learn are the Elvish language from The Lord of the Rings, Klingon from Star Trek, Na'vi from Avatar, and Dothraki from the books by George R.R. Martin. Others, such as the languages of Star Wars or the Minions, are not considered complete, so they cannot truly be learned. In 1951, Mexico City suffered one of its worst floods caused by the overflowing of the rivers that flowed in the area at that time. This problem lasted 3 months, during which many people even had to use rafts to get around. On one corner, in the historic center of the city, there is a lion head said to mark the height the water reached back then. One of the stores of the luxury brand Louis Vuitton in Singapore is a floating 2-story island. It has an underwater access tunnel, a bookstore, and a relaxation platform. It has become one of the tourist attractions of the area. Stubby was the first dog to be promoted to the rank of sergeant due to his bravery, and he was considered a hero in the First World War. He participated in 17 battles where he alerted soldiers to pepper gas attacks. He was the first to hear if nearby troops were approaching, and even once captured a spy. During champagne production, the bottles must be turned daily so sediment does not accumulate. While some factories use machines, traditional producers employ people who must turn up to 40,000 bottles each day. If you play the sound of running water in nature through speakers near beavers, they will begin covering them with branches and leaves until nothing can be heard. This proves that the instinct beavers have to build dams is triggered by the sound of running water. Dopamine fasting is a practice that has become a trend in recent years. It consists of reducing exposure to stimuli, such as video games, social media, or junk food, in order to reset dopamine receptors in the brain to improve concentration and discipline. However, there is no scientific evidence supporting this practice. Cricket fighting is a hobby and betting activity that was very popular in China since the Tang Dynasty, around 1,000 years ago. The first cricket to stop fighting or leave the field loses. Today it continues to be practiced as a tradition. Christmas lights can be seen from space in different cities around the world, and it is estimated that light pollution during a holiday season is 50% higher. In Thimphu, the capital of Bhutan, there are no traffic lights on the streets. It is the only capital in the world without them. Traffic lights were installed once, but people did not like them, so the city returned to the traditional practice of having traffic police at intersections to direct traffic. The Python programming language is named after the popular British sketch show Monty Python. The creator wanted a name that was unique, mysterious, and short, and that is what came to mind. Hatsune Miku was not the first virtual singer. In 1997, Kyoko Date was launched in Japan as a virtual idol generated by computer and was treated as a real artist by her management agency. However, she did not find much success. Unlike Hatsune Miku and other Vocaloids, Kyoko's voice was recorded by a real person. In 2008, the BBC produced a nature documentary in which they filmed the lives of tigers as closely as possible without disturbing them. To do this, They trained elephants to carry cameras with their trunks and approach the tigers. They captured interesting footage that could not have been achieved using traditional methods. In ancient Egypt, any book found on ships arriving at the ports had to be immediately taken to the Library of Alexandria to be copied. Afterwards, the copy was returned to the owners and the original remained stored. The Westcar Papyrus, a document from ancient Egypt, contains the earliest known story of magic. In it, King Khufu asks a magician named Dedi to restore life to the heads of a goose, a duck, and a bull, and he succeeds. Technically, it would be the first magic trick in history. Miners in the area of Yogo Gulch in Montana, United States, noticed over 16 years that the minerals they recovered contained small blue rocks, but they ignored them because they were focused only on gold until one day they sent a box of these stones to a jewelry store for analysis and were informed that they were high-quality sapphires that did not even need special treatment to enhance their color, making them highly valuable. In the movie Deadpool and Wolverine, it will be the first time that Wolverine, played by actor Hugh Jackman, wears his characteristic yellow uniform since his first appearance in the 2000 film X-Men, in which there is even a scene poking fun at the idea of the yellow outfit. In a remote valley in Sweden, there are people who still speak a dialect derived from Old Norse, the language of the Vikings. It is called Elfdalian. Only 3,000 people speak it, and it is currently widely studied by linguists due to its historical value. The first animated appearance of Charlie Brown and Snoopy was in a 1965 special called A Charlie Brown Christmas, which was initially rejected by the CBS television network because they did not like that the voices were done by inexperienced children, and they were not convinced by the anti-consumerism message. In the end, it was aired. The sounds made by former tennis player Maria Sharapova during matches were studied, and they were found to reach a level of 101 decibels, which, in comparison, is louder than a motorcycle, a lawnmower, and even a small plane. The reason tennis players make these sounds when hitting the ball is to generate more power, to distract, and even to release tension. The development team of Donkey Kong 64 discovered a bug that caused the game to freeze, and they found this out when the game was almost finished. Since they discovered that this bug did not occur if the Nintendo 64 expansion pack was used, they preferred to distribute the accessory together with the game rather than fix the error. In 1698, Scotland attempted to establish a colony in Panama called New Caledonia as part of a plan known as the Darien Project. But everything failed due to diseases, conflicts with the Spanish, and lack of logistical support. The resulting financial disaster nearly ruined Scotland's economy and is considered one of the factors that led to the union of Scotland with England in 1707, forming the United Kingdom. There are fake buildings in Paris that are designed to cover necessary city infrastructure, such as metro ventilation shafts, tunnels, and electrical and water facilities. Some even have painted figures of people in the windows. Teff cereal, considered a superfood for some time, had its export banned in Ethiopia to prevent a food shortage throughout the country. Similar to what happened in Bolivia when quinoa surged in popularity because of its status as a highly nutritious food. During the filming of an episode of the series Friends, actor Matt LeBlanc dislocated his shoulder and he jumped onto a couch, an action that was part of the episode. He could not continue filming. Instead of trying to hide it, the writers added a storyline later in which his character gets injured while jumping on a bed. The production of the Disney film Treasure Planet 2 was unexpectedly canceled. Even the actor Willem Dafoe, who was going to record the voice of the main villain, found out while driving to the studio. This sequel was canceled due to the poor box office performance of the first film. The word cat in most of the world's most spoken languages, such as cat, chat, katze, and kot, comes from the Latin felis catus, meaning domestic cat, but in Japanese it is neko. In this case, there are theories, but it is not known exactly how the word originated. William Adams was an English navigator who arrived in Japan in the year 1600, becoming the first Briton to visit that country. Later, he was also considered the first foreign samurai under his new name, Anjin Miura. In 2011, the Fox network threatened to cancel The Simpsons if production costs were not reduced. To keep the show going, many members of the team agreed to lower their salaries, including the voice actors, who took a salary reduction of 30%. During the Siege of Antwerp in 1585, ships loaded with tons of gunpowder were used to destroy a bridge. They were called hellburners and are considered one of the earliest weapons of mass destruction. One of the explosions they caused was heard more than 19 miles away. There is a 1999 Justice League comic in which a hero kills the dictator of a country similar to Iraq, destabilizing the nation and worsening the residents' quality of life. This is very similar to what happened in Iraq in the following decade. The owner of Virgin Atlantic, Sir Richard Branson, lost a bet with an executive of AirAsia about the winning team of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix of Formula One in 2010. The loser had to dress as airline cabin crew on the airline of the winner. The American Service Members Protection Act, colloquially known as the Hague Invasion Act, authorizes the President of the United States to use all serious and appropriate means to free Americans detained by the International Criminal Court. This law has generated controversy because it would theoretically allow an invasion of The Hague, the location of the court. The city of Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia is considered the most polluted capital in the world, a region once known for its clean air and blue sky. But in recent decades, illegal coal mines and the use of coal in common stoves, among other factors, have contributed to this situation. Many countries send their fish production on transport ships to China so they can be cut into fillets and processed, and then shipped back. This makes sense only economically. It is cheaper for them than doing it in their own territory. Elvis Presley once asked his limousine driver if he owned the car or worked for the company. The driver replied that he worked for the company. Elvis then smiled at him and said, "Well, now you own it." He gave the driver the limousine as a tip. This is an anecdote recounted by interviewer Larry King in a 2005 program, which he said he heard directly from Elvis's manager, Tom Parker. But in reality, now no one knows if it is true. In the area surrounding the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba, there's a barrier called the Cactus Curtain, which is a physical barrier created to prevent Cubans from seeking refuge in United States territory. It's called this because in addition to barbed wire and landmines, thousands of cactus plants with spines were planted. Bees are capable of recognizing human faces. This was confirmed in a study where they were trained to associate images of human faces with a reward, and the bees were able to remember and recognize these faces even days later. Although their recognition method is based on visual patterns, which is different from that of humans. In 1870 in Belgium, an attempt was made to create a letter delivery service using cats to replace carrier pigeons. But in the tests they conducted, which consisted of reaching their home from the other side of the city, one cat took 4 hours, while others took up to 24 hours, so the plan was discarded. The first dinosaur bone recognized scientifically was discovered in 1824 by British geologist and paleontologist William Buckland. It belonged to a dinosaur Buckland named Megalosaurus, or Great Lizard. This discovery marked the beginning of paleontology. Before this, dinosaur fossils had been found but misinterpreted. People believed they belonged to giant humans or mythological dragons. The colored squares or circles on product packaging are the different tones used in printing, and they allow quality inspectors, through a scanner, to more easily detect if a batch has a problem with any color. This helps them identify the machine or the ink that needs repair. The SPF of sunscreen is a highly non-linear metric. An SPF of 15 blocks 93% of incoming radiation. SPF 30 blocks 97%. SPF 50 blocks only 1% more than SPF 30, with 98%. In a church in Jerusalem, there is a wooden ladder known as the immovable ladder, which was left there in the 17th century and remains in the same place to this day. Due to an agreement between the different Christian denominations that administer the site, no community may move or alter anything without the consent of the others. Over time, it became a tourist attraction. Euro banknotes of different denominations feature drawings of fictional European architecture, carefully designed so they would not resemble any real building, but still include traditional European characteristics. Shortly afterward, the Netherlands built real bridges based on the ones on the banknotes, even in the same colors. The term yak shaving is used to describe when performing a task requires first doing other tasks that seem irrelevant and unnecessary to the main objective. It's used in management, programming, or any type of task. The first contract offered by Nike to Michael Jordan, despite being for a record amount, came with certain conditions. He had to be Rookie of the Year or have an average of 20 points per game, in addition to selling a minimum of $4 million in shoes during his first year. In the end, he managed to fulfill all the conditions and far exceeded the sales goal with a total of $100 million. The star Betelgeuse, located in the constellation Orion, is one of the most likely candidates to become a supernova and be visible to the naked eye from Earth. Although it's difficult to predict exactly when this will happen, astronomers believe it could occur within the next millennia due to signs suggesting it is in the final stages of its life, such as unusual variations in its brightness. When it finally explodes, it will be an impressive spectacle in the night sky, visible even during the day. Actor The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, holds 2 world records. In 2015, he set the record for the most selfies taken in 3 minutes, with 105 on the red carpet at the premiere of the film San Andreas, although that record has since been broken. His other record is even more interesting. He is the highest-paid actor for a first leading role after earning $5.5 million for playing the Scorpion King. The most downloaded mobile phone game so far is Candy Crush Saga, with more than 500 million players. Call of Duty Mobile and Among Us follow in popularity in second and third place, respectively. The practice of coloring films has been used since 1902 and was done by hand-painting each frame, which resulted in a rather bright and peculiar color scheme. The fall of the Brazilian monarchy in 1889 was so discreet that it went almost unnoticed. The coup d'état that overthrew Emperor Pedro I was so peaceful and quick that many witnesses did not even realize they were seeing a revolution. The royal family was exiled without resistance, and Brazil went from being an empire to a republic within hours. Most of the population did not find out until days later. In a classic cognitive dissonance experiment, participants were paid either $1 or $20 to perform the same 1-hour task, which was intentionally very boring. When it ended, those who received $1 said it had been stimulating, while those who received 20 said they hated it. For centuries, gorillas were considered mythical creatures that existed only in tales and legends of explorers. It was not until 1847 that the western gorilla was cataloged as a new species based on bones collected in Liberia, and later more species were observed in the wild. The first digital camera was developed by Kodak in 1975, but it was later discarded out of fear that it would threaten their photographic film business. Years later, the adoption of digital photography by competing companies led to their bankruptcy. The makeup company Maybelline was founded in 1915 by Thomas Lyle Williams after he saw his sister Mabel using a mixture of petroleum jelly and coal dust to darken her eyelashes and eyebrows. Williams perfected the formula and created the first commercial mascara, naming the brand in honor of his sister by combining Mabel with Vaseline. The first Rocky movie, which eventually created a multi-million-dollar franchise, was produced on a very tight budget of just over $1 million in 1976. The lead actor, Sylvester Stallone, even had to sell his dog because he was struggling financially before the movie was sold. Fortunately, he was able to buy him back after the film's success. Actor Heath Ledger kept a diary in which he wrote as his character, the Joker, to prepare for his performance. He included things the Joker would have found entertaining, such as injured doctors, brain-damaged geniuses, landmines, and hats. This method of preparing by immersing oneself in the mind of the character is called the Stanislavski method. During the Second World War, natives on some Pacific islands who lived isolated from the outside world believed that the supply packages dropped from airplanes were sent by their ancestors from the sky. After the war, it was observed that they imitated the marches of the soldiers they saw and even built wooden airplanes and runways in hopes they would return. In the musical theater adaptation of the popular manga and anime Spy X Family, which was performed in Japan in 2023, 4 actresses played the character Anya. This added dynamism to the scenes and prevented the workload from being too heavy for a single child actress. Between 30 and 39% of the people in Vietnam have the surname Nguyen, which is the most common surname in the country. It comes from a dynasty. Some countries face the problem of surname extinction, favoring only the most popular ones. There is a town named Reddit in Ontario, Canada. Only 139 people live there, and its main attraction is the Bottle House, fantasy structures made with 25,000 glass bottles. The name of this place is similar to the website Reddit, except it has 2 letters T at the end. In the film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, when Miles Morales visits his Uncle Aaron, the television is on and shows for a few seconds an episode of the series Community where Donald Glover appears wearing Spider-Man pajamas. Glover played Aaron in the movie Spider-Man Homecoming. The first Japanese person to travel to Mexico was Hasakura Tsunaga, who arrived in Acapulco in 1614 with the purpose of establishing a trade relationship with what was then known as New Spain. Several monuments in Mexico honor him. In 2018, in cities of Russia, Ukraine, Bulgaria, and Romania, orange snow appeared. Winter sports resorts displayed this unusual color, which was caused by sandstorms coming from Kazakhstan or the Sahara Desert that accumulated in the sky and then fell, mixed with water in that area. Walmart stores failed in Germany due to cultural and management differences. The friendly greeting policy and employee-packed bags clashed with the privacy and efficiency preferred by Germans. In addition, their low-price strategy did not impress a market already accustomed to discounts, so they stopped operating in that country in 2006 and accumulated total losses of more than $3 billion. The Fujifilm company had shifted its business model in recent years to focus on specialized health equipment. However, in recent months, its retro X100 cameras, priced at $1,600, have been extremely successful thanks to social media, selling faster than they can be manufactured. Director Guillermo del Toro lost his notebook in a taxi in London where he had written all the ideas for the film Pan's Labyrinth. Since he had been talking about comics and mentioned to the driver the hotel where he was staying, the driver was able to return the notebook to him 2 days later, and Del Toro gave him a tip of $900 as thanks. North Korea has an airline called Air Koryo. They have 6 planes in operation, and for years, it was rated as the worst airline by the Skytrax organization, with 1 star out of 5, although it is currently listed as unrated. There is an achievement in the video game Rock Band 2 that requires completing a 7-hour playlist without pausing or making mistakes to unlock it. The developers name this achievement Bladder of Steel. Most pearlescent effect makeup contains fish scales among its ingredients, specifically from herrings, which naturally contain the substance that produces that distinctive shimmer. The creators of the detective comedy series Sledgehammer learned that it would not be renewed for the next season, resulting in a cancellation. Knowing this, in the final episode, the protagonist fails while trying to disarm a nuclear bomb and destroys the entire city of San Francisco. Since that episode received very high ratings, the series was renewed. Therefore, the next season had to be made as a prequel with events that had occurred 5 years earlier. In 2016, an app called People was launched that consisted of rating people as if they were businesses or services, similar to the plot of an episode of the series Black Mirror. From the first day, it was criticized for its frivolity, and shortly afterward, it was deleted. A BBC computer was hacked during a demonstration on how to use email. This happened on a live program in 1983. On the screen, an error message appeared, followed by the lyrics of a joke song about hacking the password to gain access. It had been overheard by someone in the audience before the broadcast, who then shared it over the phone with a friend who carried out the prank. According to a study, people who use self-deprecating humor, meaning those who can laugh at themselves, tend to have better psychological health. This type of humor is associated with higher self-esteem, happiness, and optimism, as long as it is used in a healthy and balanced way. In Australia, instead of having chocolate Easter bunnies, they created the Easter bilby as an alternative, representing a species of marsupial in danger of extinction called Macrodus. Native to the country, also known as bilbies, Turkey broke 14 world records for typing speed between 1957 and 1995. This was thanks to a keyboard design where the most commonly used letters in the Turkish language were placed according to hand anatomy. The ancestors of whales from 50 million years ago were land-dwelling animals that looked like a mix between dogs and opossums. But over many generations, they adapted to marine conditions. When the Constitution of Iceland was rewritten in 2011, people were allowed to make corrections and suggestions through Facebook. It was the first time such a process was carried out on social media. Food chemist William A. Mitchell registered 70 patents during his career, including inventions such as Tang drink powder, Pop Rocks candy, and Cool Whip whip topping. He is considered by many to be the real-life Willy Wonka. Near Tokyo, Japan, there is an underground flood discharge channel. It is a giant space through which water can flow to prevent floods. Most of the year, it is a tourist attraction and a filming location. In the 1906 Olympic Games held in Athens, a pistol dueling competition was included. Participants shot at mannequins dressed in evening suits, aiming at the heart. But this discipline was removed shortly afterward. A cloud measuring 1 cubic kilometer weighs around 550 tons. This is equivalent to 227 elephants. But since the water particles are spread over a large area, clouds can float in the sky. Their mass can vary according to weather conditions. The Andean condor flaps its wings only 1% of the time while flying. The other 99% is spent simply gliding, using air currents to stay aloft. It is one of the heaviest flying birds on the planet. There are cicadas that, during the first stage of their life, spend up to 17 years, about 12 inches underground, without seeing the outside world, until they emerge to the surface, climb a tree, and become adults. A halo car is a vehicle designed to showcase technological capability and enhance a brand's image, regardless of the sales or profits achieved. Among these cars are the Ford GT, the Nissan GTR, the Audi R8, and the Dodge Viper. Spices and spicy food in general help with memory, serving as a stimulant for the brain to remember moments, which is why research has been conducted on the possibility of using them to treat cognitive deterioration diseases. Newborn babies in their first days of life can support their own weight for up to 2 minutes with their hands on a bar. This was studied by different doctors and scientists since the 19th century, and it is believed to be an innate reflex favored by evolution to improve survival chances. The rings of Saturn will last only about 124 million years, and in a certain way, it is fortunate that we can see them, as they represent a very brief event in cosmic existence. For example, the dinosaurs of the Triassic period could not see them even if they'd had a telescope. In 1977 in India, a law was enacted requiring foreign corporations to share their formulas and part of their profits with local companies. This caused many brands to leave the country, such as Coca-Cola, which did not return until 1993. During that time, the Double 7 brand, manufactured by the government of India, was the best-selling beverage. The sun is actually white when observed from space. At high altitude, it appears in its true color, white. But when observed from low altitude, atmospheric scattering makes it appear yellow, orange, and occasionally red. The prehistoric aurochs, which are the ancestors of domestic cattle, are being brought back through selective breeding projects such as the Toros project. Scientists use modern breeds that still preserve genetic characteristics of the aurochs to recreate a version close to these extinct animals. This will help improve biodiversity and maintain ecosystems. Although the cheetah is considered the fastest land animal, the fastest animal relative to its size is actually the mite, Paratarsotomus macropalpus. This tiny mite can run 322 body lengths per second, far faster in relative terms than any other animal. To test bank security systems, robbery drills have been carried out in which hackers and experts are hired to try to find failures in the system and to train staff. Many of the costumes and uniforms worn by characters in the Marvel Comics universe are made with unstable molecules, a technology developed by Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four that allows the fabric to withstand the harmful effects of the user's powers and the wear of battles. Pirates traditionally wore earrings as a record of their feats. They received them from their superiors every time they completed expeditions, and it was also believed that precious metals had the ability to improve vision at sea. The Fata Morgana phenomenon is a complex optical illusion that occurs on the horizon, especially over the sea or in deserts, creating the appearance of cities, mountains, or ships floating in the air. It is caused by light refraction reacting to different air densities and temperatures. Many stories of mirages and floating ships are due to this phenomenon. The New York City Ballet has a budget of $80,000 for shoes. Dancers use between 500 and 800 pairs of point shoes when performing the Nutcracker during 6 weeks, and they use even more pairs during 2 weeks performing Swan Lake. The water resistance depth shown on a watch does not mean the watch can actually be taken to that depth. A watch rated for 100 feet is actually only resistant to splashes, such as those that occur when washing hands. If a watch is going to be submerged, it is recommended that it be specifically made for diving. In Sweden, there is a museum of failure that collects and displays failed products from around the world. The goal of the exhibit is to encourage people to take risks and learn from past failures. The museum also provides insight into the world of product development and innovation. Among the items displayed are green ketchup, new Coke, the Nokia N-Gage, and Crystal Pepsi. In 2018, A painting by the artist Edgar Degas from the late 19th century, valued at nearly $1 million, was found in France. It had been stolen 9 years earlier. It was abandoned inside a suitcase on a bus, and to this day, no one knows why it was placed there, or by whom. At the Devil's Kettle Waterfall, located in Minnesota, United States, the river's flow splits into two streams. One can be seen where it falls, and the other goes into an underground current whose exit point is still unknown. Attempts have been made to dye the water to find its destination, but without success. The most likely possibility is that the water exits through an underground cave into the bottom of Lake Superior. There is a suspended monorail in Germany that was built in 1897 and to this day transports 25 million passengers annually. The term paper street refers to a road or street that has been planned by city engineers but has not yet been built. In the movie Fight Club, one of the main characters lived in a house on Paper Street, which serves as a hint about the movie's ending. Paleontologists found fossils of Macamosaurus rex, a prehistoric crocodile that was the size of a bus, approximately 30 feet long and weighing around 6,600 pounds. Its skull alone measured nearly 5 feet, making it the largest terrestrial crocodile that ever existed. Bill Watterson, the author of the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes, believed that adapting it to any other medium would compromise its integrity. He even rejected personal offers and calls from directors like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, who wanted to make an animated movie about his characters. The light that reaches our eyes from the upper half of the Andromeda Galaxy is approximately 250,000 years older than the light from the lower half. Euprunop australis is known for being the spider with the longest legs. It can extend its limbs to almost 5 inches. However, it is not considered dangerous to humans, as its venom has no significant effects on us. Its long legs allow it to build traps and detect prey and dangers from a distance. In the African country of Sierra Leone, people who want to obtain a driver's license must complete a board game in which they answer questions about driving rules before taking a test with a real car. According to research, sweating when we're anxious or nervous serves as a signal for others to stay alert for any danger. It's an evolutionary characteristic, and when someone is close enough, the scent activates the region of the brain that processes emotions and social cues. In 1934, a $100,000 gold certificate was printed, but it was never issued to the general public. It was used exclusively for transactions between Federal Reserve banks, facilitating internal money transfers. It is the highest denomination bill ever produced. Seeds that were 2,000 years old and found at an archaeological site in Israel were successfully germinated. The result was a species of date palm that had been extinct. That sounds terrible, but it's said in the past that the setting wasn't the legendary 15th century. It was just completed in 2024. Even the clothing worn by the workers resembled medieval attire, and all materials were sourced locally. In 1945, a group of children from a school in the Soviet Union gave the United States ambassador a carved shield as a gesture of friendship. It hung in his office for 7 years until someone discovered it contained a spying device used for listening. The Wright brothers managed to complete their first flight with an airplane that cost approximately $1,000 to build. Other people were trying to achieve the same feat, such as the inventor Samuel Langley, who did not succeed despite having a budget of $50,000. In an episode of the animated series BoJack Horseman, an opossum appears holding a shirt that says, "Stop pausing and just watch the show." This series is full of visual jokes that last only a few seconds, so fans often pause scenes to analyze them. In 1986, McDonald's released a hamburger that came separated, and the customer had to assemble it before eating. The idea was to keep the hot ingredients on one side and the cold ingredients on the other side. But it did not last long before being discontinued because it generated too much waste, and people generally did not like the concept. Leafcutter ants do not eat leaves. They only cut them to cultivate fungi, which then serve as their food. They are among the animals with the most complex social structures in the world. Dogs often tilt their heads when they want to recognize a word they associate with an activity, such as walk. If a dog does not tilt its head often, it means it does not focus as much on sound and responds more to visual cues. To film Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, child labor laws in the United Kingdom had to be changed at the end of the year 2000. More weekly work hours were added, and classroom schedules on set were made more flexible. Most apartment buildings in New York City were built with 6 floors because the city's water system could only provide enough pressure for water to rise 6 stories. Taller buildings require their own tanks and pumping systems. In cheerleading in the United States, a single company called Varsity Brands dominates almost the entire landscape. It owns most of the uniform and equipment brands. It also organizes national championships and owns the regulatory organization. This has generated controversy due to conflicts of interest, even resulting in antitrust lawsuits. The Bonaparte House remains today as a symbolic dynasty, but if for some reason France were to return to a monarchy, they would return to power, and the emperor would be Jean-Christophe Napoleon, who is currently an investor in New York and would be known as Napoleon VII. According to studies, ballet dancers have much higher pain thresholds compared to non-dancers of the same age. This increased tolerance to pain is due to the intense and constant practice required, comparable to that of high-performance athletes. A contract with Universal Pictures states that director Robert Zemeckis and writer Bob Gale, creators of Back to the Future, must approve any new movie in this franchise. Both have declared firmly that they will not allow remakes or continuations while they are alive. It is possible for a person who is bilingual or multilingual to be dyslexic in one language but not in another. Dyslexia is a learning disorder that makes reading and writing difficult due to problems associating words and letters. In Portugal, there are 2 18th-century libraries that have bats inside. They keep them because the bats help preserve the books by eating the insects that could feed on the paper. However, maintaining them requires daily cleaning by the library staff. The championship of the North American Professional Ice Hockey League had no winner in 1919. This was due to an influenza epidemic during the finals that left most of the players on one of the competing teams hospitalized. The slow loris is the only venomous primate. The origin of this venom is a toxin produced by a gland in its arm that it mixes with its saliva before biting to defend itself. They can also apply it to the fur of their offspring to protect them. Morocco was the first country to recognize the independence of the United States. The Sultan of Morocco even warned all Moroccan pirates of that time not to attack American ships traveling through the Atlantic Ocean. Scientists spent 17 years investigating random radio wave readings that appeared in the Parkes telescope in Australia, believing it was a strange phenomenon. They eventually discovered that the unusual readings came from a microwave oven on site that employees used to heat their food. The moons of Mars, Phobos and Deimos, were officially discovered in 1877 by Asaph Hall. However, they had already been theorized by writer and philosopher Voltaire and by Jonathan Swift in the book Gulliver's Travels from 1726, in which they are mentioned as 2 small stars or satellites orbiting Mars. Lake Karachay is the most radioactive place in the world. There are so many radioactive elements there that if a human stands near the lake for an hour, they can suffer fatal injuries. It is located in the southern Ural Mountains in central Russia and was once a dumping site for radioactive waste by the Soviet Union. Bats eat so many insects that they indirectly help save money on pesticides in crop fields. while some bats feed on nectar and are an important part of the reproduction of fruits, such as peaches and bananas. Astronomers discovered a surviving planet orbiting a white dwarf star, which is the remnant of a supernova. This planet, which is 40% larger than Jupiter, remains intact despite being so close to a dead star, challenging theories about planetary survival after an event of such magnitude. Ice cream tasters often use spoons made of pure gold, as it is the only material that allows them to perceive flavor at 100%, without alterations like those that occur with common metal spoons. Being awake for 17 consecutive hours causes a decrease in cognitive ability equivalent to having 2 glasses of wine, and the longer one stays awake, the worse the effect becomes. According to research conducted by historians, having a queen in power in a European country increased the probability of war by 27% compared to kings. At one point, there was a soda flavored like Hubba Bubba gum, and there were also Hubba Bubba chewing gums flavored like Dr. Pepper or 7-Up with liquid centers. These products were discontinued shortly afterward. There is a hypothesis called the one-electron universe that proposes that a single electron exists in the entire universe and propagates through space and time in such a way that it appears in many places simultaneously. Rapper Coolio was going to play the villain Scarecrow in the sequel to Batman and Robin. That is why he has a cameo in that film in the motorcycle race scene, but the sequel was canceled shortly afterward. In 1973, Concorde pilots chased the shadow of a solar eclipse at a speed of Mach 2, nearly 1,550 miles per hour. They managed to extend the duration of the eclipse from their perspective from 7 minutes to 74 minutes. To this day, that record has not been surpassed. London has several ghost stations in its subway network that were closed for various reasons, such as low usage due to low population density or route restructuring. Among the best known are Aldwych, closed in 1994 and frequently used for filming, and Downstreet, closed in 1932 and used as a shelter during the Second World War. Humans did not domesticate chickens originally for egg or meat production, but because of the popularity of cockfighting. And it was not until the 20th century that mass chicken production farms for human consumption became widespread. A New York Times article revealed that nobody knows who the largest clients of glitter manufacturers are, because this information is prohibited from being disclosed. This triggered an internet conspiracy theory about potential hidden military or industrial uses for the product, but nothing has been confirmed so far. During the production of the movie Borat, the FBI opened a file and monitored the team because they received reports from many people claiming they had seen a terrorist in an ice cream truck, which was actually the main actor, Sacha Baron Cohen. Before building the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, the plan was to build an underwater tunnel to cross the bay while ships sailed above. Although constructing the tunnel was cheaper, they ultimately decided to build the bridge because it could serve as a distinctive regional landmark, like a monument. Plants appeared before seeds. According to fossils, the first plants, which were similar to modern mosses, reproduced through single-celled spores. Seeds would emerge 150 million years later. Each year, the Chinese government offers scholarships to 60 students to study at universities in North Korea. During their studies, Chinese students have more freedom than typical visitors. They can travel from city to city without a guide and can use the subway whenever they want. The Troud motorcycle, built in 1916, was discovered hidden behind a wall in Chicago and is considered one of the rarest motorcycles in the world. It was handmade with very advanced features for its time, and none of its parts match those of other motorcycles that existed in those years. MTV began broadcasting in the first minute of August 1st, 1981. The first thing they aired was footage of the first launch of the Space Shuttle Columbia, which they used as an ident until 1986, when it was removed after the Challenger shuttle accident. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.